The sun dips low over the Australian outback, painting the horizon in fiery hues of orange and red. A cloud of dust trails behind a vehicle, tearing through the rugged terrain, its silhouette sharp against the endless expanse of dirt and sky. This isn't a Ford Ranger. It's not a Toyota Hilux. And it sure as hell isn't what you'd expect from a company like CHERY. Yet here it is, a dual-cab ute that's not just rolling into the scene, it's kicking down the door. Nobody saw this coming, not from China, not with a diesel plug-in hybrid heart beating under the hood. But CHERY's not playing by the old rules. They're writing new ones, and the giants of the ute world are starting to sweat. This is the story of a machine that could rewrite Australia's love affair with the ute. A story of ambition, defiance, and a gamble so bold, it might just change everything. For years, CHERY was the underdog nobody took seriously. In Australia, they were the brand behind budget-friendly cars like the Omoda 5. Decent, affordable, but hardly the stuff of legend. People shrugged them off as a fleeting presence, a brand that had never climbed the ranks to challenge the titans. Ford's Ranger ruled the roads with its raw power and rugged charm. Toyota's Hilux was the unbreakable workhorse, a name synonymous with trust earned over decades. Even newcomers like BYD's Shark 6 were shaking things up with electric flair. CHERY? They were barely a blip on the radar, but something shifted. While the world wasn't watching, CHERY was plotting. They weren't content with small cars and safe bets. They wanted more. They wanted to build a ute that could stand toe-to-toe with the best, not just in Australia, but globally, and they weren't asking for permission. Lucas Harris, CHERY's Australian COO, stood before the company's global chairman with a vision that could have been laughed out of the room. He didn't just pitch a new vehicle. He demanded a seat at the table, full collaboration with the engineers, real input from the Australian team. A ute designed not just for the world, but with the soul of Australia's toughest roads baked into its bones. It was a long shot. CHERY's headquarters in China could have dismissed it as overreach from a small market. Instead, they leaned in. Within a week, 6 engineers had visa applications in hand, ready to fly to Australia. Why? Because CHERY saw what others didn't. A chance to break out, to prove they could do more than follow. Australia, with its brutal terrain and fiercely loyal ute buyers, wasn't just a market. It was the ultimate proving ground. This isn't the CHERY of a decade ago, when Chinese brands were a punchline. Their early cars plagued by shaky reliability and thin safety ratings. The Tiggo 6 Pro changed minds, earning nods for its value in tech. But a ute is a different beast. It's not just a vehicle in Australia. It's a way of life. It's the tradie hauling tools to a dusty worksite, the farmer crossing rivers to check livestock, the adventurer chasing freedom where the bitumen ends. To compete, CHERY needed to do more than match the competition. They needed to shock them. And that's where the diesel plug-in hybrid comes in. It's a powertrain no one expected. A choice so audacious, it feels like a dare. Not petrol, not fully electric, but a fusion of diesel's raw endurance and electric's clean precision. It's a move that puts CHERY in a lane all their own, not chasing trends but trying to ignite one. Why go this route? Because Australia's ute buyers don't mess around. They need a rig that can tow heavy loads, haul a ton of gear, and keep going when the nearest fuel station is a day's drive away. Diesel's low-end torque and long-range cruising make it the king of the outback. Pair it with a plug-in hybrid system, and you've got a ute that sips fuel in the city, then roars to life on the open road. It's the best of both worlds. Silent, emission-free drives for short trips, and the stamina to conquer highways or remote tracks without breaking a sweat. CHERY's betting that this combination could push the total range past the 800 kilometers of rivals, like the BYD Shark 6, maybe even flirting with 1,000. That's not just a number. It's a promise of freedom, of never being stranded, no matter where the road takes you. But ambition alone doesn't cut it. The engineering behind this ute is a tightrope walk. Diesel and electric motors don't play nice together naturally. Their torque curves clash. Their behaviors differ. Blending them into a seamless driving experience takes serious brainpower and relentless testing. Then, there's the battery. Heavy, bulky, and a potential thief of payload space. CHERY's, aiming for a 1-ton payload, the gold standard in the ute game. Miss that mark, and they're out before they start. Yet Harris and his team aren't flinching. They're not building this ute in a bubble. They've studied the segment, dissected what works, and learned from what doesn't. And they're not stopping at one model. There's talk of multiple variants, a traditional diesel for the purists, maybe even a petrol option down the line. But the diesel plug-in hybrid? That's the one meant to turn heads and steal hearts. This ute isn't a rebadge or a rushed job. It's a body-on-frame beast, a leap from CHERY's Monaco crossovers. That choice alone signals intent. They're not here to dabble. They're here to dominate. And they know the stakes. Harris doesn't shy away from praising the competition. The Ranger, the Hilux, even the Shark 6, they're damn good trucks. But that's exactly why CHERY's hungry. It gives us fire, he says, and you can feel it in the way they're moving. 6 engineers didn't fly to Australia for a holiday. They came to build something that could survive the corrugated gravel of the outback, the blistering heat of the desert, the steep climbs of the high country. They came to prove CHERY belongs. Still, the question lingers. Can Australians trust it? Utes aren't just vehicles here. They're lifelines. A breakdown in the middle of nowhere isn't an inconvenience. It's a crisis. CHERY's got no track record with body-on-frame rigs in this market. Their history is short, their reputation still forming. Some buyers still carry scars from the early days of Chinese brands. Cheap builds, spotty service, and promises that didn't hold up. CHERY's different now, but different enough. That's the gamble. They're not just building a ute. They're building credibility. And in a market where loyalty is forged in mud and sweat, that's no small feat. The renders floating around show a machine that means business. Wide stance, aggressive tires, a look that screams purpose. But looks don't tow trailers or climb rocky trails. CHERY's gotta back it up with real-world grit. Are they ready to let this ute loose on Australia's harshest proving grounds? Will it hold up under the kind of punishment that breaks lesser vehicles? Or is this all hype, a flashy concept that'll fade when the dust settles? If Harris and his team are any indication, CHERY's not here to bluff. They're here to leapfrog the competition, to show the world what a Chinese brand can do when it stops following and starts leading. And as the sun sets on that outback horizon, one thing's clear. This story's just getting started. Picture a lone ute carving through the pre-dawn mist of an Australian highway, its headlights cutting a path where the world feels endless. The hum of its engine is joined by a whisper, quiet electric motor. A strange harmony for a vehicle born to wrestle with the wild. This is CHERY's diesel plug-in hybrid ute, a machine that shouldn't exist. Not yet. Not from a brand still finding its feet in a market that bows to giants. But it does exist. And it's here to do more than compete. It's here to challenge everything you thought you knew about what a ute can be. In a land where diesel rules the long haul and electric dreams tease the future, CHERY's dared to fuse the two, crafting a vehicle that promises to outlast, outsmart, and outrun the legends. This is the heart of their gamble, a powertrain so unexpected it could either redefine the game or leave them stranded in the dust. Why diesel and plug-in hybrid? It's the kind of question that keeps engineers up at night and makes buyers raise an eyebrow. Diesel's the lifeblood of Australia's toughest workhorses. Its low-end torque pulls trailers through mud. Its efficiency stretches fuel across deserts where stations are myths. But it's not perfect. clunky in the city, guzzling just enough to sting on short trips. Enter the plug-in hybrid. Electric motors bring silent, emission-free driving for those urban runs, sipping power while the diesel sleeps. Together, they're a paradox made real. A ute that glides through morning traffic like a whisper, then roars to life when the road turns to dirt. CHERY's not just chasing efficiency. They're chasing freedom, the kind that lets you haul a ton of gear to a remote site without worrying about the next plug or pump. The numbers are tantalizing. Rivals like the BYD Shark 6 and GWM Cannon Alpha, with their petrol plug-in hybrids, already push ranges toward 800, maybe 880 kilometers. Now swap petrol for diesel, with its denser energy and longer legs. Suddenly, you're staring at a ute that could kiss 1,000 kilometers on a single tank and charge. That's not a spec sheet boast. It's a lifeline for the farmer crossing state lines, the tradie working sites hours from civilization, the adventurer who doesn't trust maps. But numbers don't tell the whole story. Building a diesel plug-in hybrid isn't like bolting on a new bumper. It's a brutal engineering puzzle, one that's kept even the biggest names at bay. Diesel engines and electric motors are like two stubborn mates who don't get along. Diesel's raw, relentless power surges at low revs, built for grinding through heavy loads. Electric motors are smooth, instant, happiest in short bursts. Mating them requires more than clever coding. It demands a harmony of torque curves, a dance of systems that feel seamless to the driver. One wrong move, and the ute could lurch or hesitate, a death sentence in a market where trust is everything. Then there's the battery. It's heavy, bulky, and a space hog. Tuck it in the wrong spot, and you're eating into the 1-ton payload CHERY's promised, a non-negotiable benchmark for any serious ute. Miss that, and you're not just out of the game. You're not even invited to play. Yet CHERY's team isn't blinking. They've spent years dissecting the segment, learning from the Rangers and Hiluxes that dominate it. They know what works: a body-on-frame chassis for strength, a suspension tuned for punishment, a low-range transfer case for clawing through the bush. They also know what doesn't: half-hearted efforts, rebadged knockoffs, or tech that looks good on paper but wilts in the real world. This ute isn't a side project. It's a ground-up build, designed to take a beating and keep moving. And it's not just one ute, CHERY's planning variants. A straight diesel for the traditionalists who trust what they know. Maybe a petrol option for lighter duties. But the diesel plug-in hybrid? That's the wild card. The one meant to make Ford and Toyota glance nervously over their shoulders. Lucas Harris, CHERY's Australian COO, doesn't hide the challenge. He calls the competition outstanding, a nod to the giants who've earned their stripes. But that respect fuels their fire. CHERY's not here to mimic. They're here to disrupt. And disruption means taking risks others won't. Why hasn't Toyota, with its hybrid empire, tried a diesel plug-in? Why hasn't Ford, with its Ranger dynasty, ventured here? Because it's hard. It's expensive. It's uncharted. But CHERY's not afraid of the deep end. They've got the hunger of an underdog and the resources of a global player. Their engineers aren't just tinkering. They're obsessing, using cutting-edge simulation tech and modular platforms to solve problems others haven't touched. Still, the Outback doesn't care about ambition. It's a crucible that breaks anything less than bulletproof. Australians don't just want a ute that works. They want one they can bet their livelihood on. A flat battery in the city is a nuisance. A dead engine in the bush is a disaster. CHERY knows this, which is why they're not just building for showrooms. They're building for the corrugated tracks, the river crossings, the blistering heat that tests metal and will alike. Harris talks about Australian engineers working hand in hand with the team in China, not as an afterthought but as core to the design. When he pitched the idea to CHERY's global chairman, the response wasn't a polite nod. It was action. 6 engineers, visas in hand, ready to embed Australia's DNA into this machine. That kind of commitment isn't just talk. It's a signal that CHERY sees this ute as more than a product. It's their shot at a legacy. They're not just entering a market, they're aiming to redefine it. But redefining means proving. And proving means surviving the gauntlet of Australian expectations. Can this ute tow a trailer through mud without flinching? Can it climb a rocky trail without rattling apart? Can it carry a ton of gear and still feel planted on a twisting dirt road? The renders: wide track, meaty tires, a stance that screams confidence. Hint at yes. But hints aren't enough. CHERY's got to deliver, not just in specs but in feel. The kind of feel that makes a driver trust the wheel in their hands. The kind that turns a skeptic into a believer. And then there's the shadow of history. CHERY's come a long way from the days when Chinese brands were dismissed as cheap and flimsy. The Tiggo 7 Pro showed they could compete on value and tech. But a ute is a different beast. It's not just about comfort or gadgets. It's about grit, reliability, and the kind of toughness that earns a nod from a tradie after a 12-hour day. Some buyers still remember the early Chinese vehicles that promised much and delivered little. CHERY's got to overcome that, not with marketing spin, but with undeniable proof. They're not just building a ute. They're building trust. And trust in this game is harder to forge than steel. As the mist clears and that lone ute powers toward the horizon, you can feel the weight of what's at stake. CHERY's not just rolling the dice. They're betting everything on this machine. It's a gamble that could see them soar or crash, a chance to carve their name into a market that doesn't forgive mistakes. But if they pull it off, if this diesel plug-in hybrid delivers the range, the power, and the toughness it promises, they might not just join the conversation. They might start it. The road ahead is long, and the competition's watching. But for now, CHERY's got their foot on the throttle, and they're not slowing down. The dust settles on a rugged trail, where the air hums with the faint growl of an engine and the quiet whir of electric power. CHERY's diesel plug-in hybrid ute sits poised, its tires caked in red dirt, a testament to the punishment it's endured. This isn't just a vehicle, it's a declaration. In Australia, where utes are more than machines, they're partners in survival, symbols of grit, and emblems of trust. CHERY knows the weight of that legacy. They're not just stepping into a market, they're stepping into a battlefield where giants like Ford Ranger and Toyota Hilux have ruled for decades, where newcomers like BYD's Shark 6 are clawing for a foothold with electric audacity. Yet CHERY's not here to blend in. They're here to carve out a space no one else has claimed, to prove a Chinese brand can not only compete, but redefine what toughness means. This is their moment to turn ambition into legend, or risk fading into the noise. Building a ute that can survive Australia's brutal terrain is only half the fight. The real battle is in the heart of the buyer. Utes aren't just tools here, they're identities. The tradie who loads it with gear at dawn, the farmer who trusts it to cross swollen creeks, the family who piles in for a weekend escape. They don't just buy a vehicle. They invest in a promise. CHERY's biggest hurdle isn't engineering. It's trust. A decade ago, Chinese brands stumbled into this market with cheap builds and shaky reputations. Thin safety ratings, spotty service, and broken promises left scars. CHERY's not that brand anymore. The Tiggo 7 Pro proved they can deliver polish and value, but a ute is a different beast. It's not enough to be good, it has to be undeniable, the kind of machine that earns a nod from a skeptic after a year of hard yards. So how do you build trust in a market that's loyal to its legends? CHERY's not trying to mimic Ford's rugged swagger or Toyota's bulletproof heritage. They're leaning into what makes them different. The diesel plug-in hybrid isn't just a powertrain. It's a story of innovation, a bold swing at a future where efficiency meets endurance. But stories don't sell utes, proof does. CHERY knows they can't just roll out a shiny prototype and expect applause. They need to let this ute prove itself, not in polished ads, but in the real world. Picture it. A convoy of these machines tearing through the outback, hauling trailers over rocky trails, fording rivers and baking under the desert sun. No voiceovers, no slick edits, just raw, unfiltered punishment, the kind that shows what this ute's made of. That's the kind of transparency that turns doubters into believers. Then there's the practical side. Australia's vast, and its remoteness is unforgiving. A ute that breaks down in a coastal city is a hassle. One that fails in the middle of nowhere is a crisis. CHERY's got to build a service network that can keep up, especially in rural towns where parts and mechanics are as scarce as rain. Buyers need to know that if something goes wrong, help's not a week away. Will CHERY partner with local logistics firms to spread their reach? Could they offer roadside assistance that covers off-road treks? These aren't just details. They're the difference between a sale and a pass. The Tiggo 7 Pro showed CHERY can deliver on tech and comfort, but a ute demands more. It demands a brand that's there when the chips are down. Price is another tightrope. CHERY's built a name on affordability, but in the ute game, cheap can smell like compromise. Undercut the market too far and buyers will assume you've cut corners. Price it too close to a Ranger or Hilux, and you'd better match their every spec. It's a delicate balance, one that requires CHERY to position this ute as both a value leader and a premium contender. They could sweeten the deal, extended warranties, guaranteed buybacks, or service plans that ease the leap of faith. But the real magic will be in the marketing. Will they play up the diesel hybrid's tech, pitching it as the future of work and adventure? Or will they lean on rugged imagery, showing this ute knee-deep in mud, proving it's as tough as the old guard? One wrong move and they risk being seen as neither innovative enough for tech fans, nor gritty enough for traditionalists. The competition isn't standing still. The Ford Ranger isn't just a bestseller. It's a cultural icon, a truck that feels like it was forged in Australia's red dirt. The Toyota Hilux is trust on wheels, a name that's weathered decades of challenges. And then there's the BYD Shark 6, a disruptor that's shown how fast a newcomer can gain ground with bold tech. CHERY's walking into a crowded arena where every player's fighting for the same hearts. There's no room for middle ground. To stand out, they need to be a specialist, either the toughest or the smartest. The diesel plug-in hybrid gives them a shot at the latter, a chance to own a niche no one else has touched. If they nail the execution, this ute could be the one drivers choose when they want city efficiency and outback stamina in one package. Execution is everything. The engineering's promising. A body-on-frame chassis, a 1-ton payload, a suspension tuned for Australia's worst roads. The renders show a beast with a wide stance and tires built to grip. But it's not about what's on paper or in sketches. It's about the feel, the way the steering bites into a turn, the way the engine responds under load, the way the cab stays quiet when the road gets rough. CHERY's Australian engineers are embedded in the process, ensuring the ute's not just built for the world, but for the specific hell of Australia's backcountry. That's a start, but it's not enough. They need to test this thing where it matters, on the trails, in the heat, under the pressure that breaks pretenders. And they need to show it, not just tell it. This is where the story gets real. CHERY's not just building a ute. They're building a reputation. Every review, every test drive, every owner who tows a trailer through dust and comes back smiling will add to their case. They don't have Ford's decades or Toyota's legacy, so they'll need to create their own. It starts with authenticity, letting the ute speak for itself, proving it can handle the job, the adventure, the life. If they get it right, this could be more than a vehicle launch. It could be the moment CHERY becomes a name Australians trust, a name that stands for something new yet enduring, a workhorse that feels like a premium SUV inside but fights like a bull outside. As the sun rises over that dusty trail, The CHERY Ute stands ready, its hybrid heart pulsing with possibility. The battlefield is brutal, but it's open. Ford, Toyota, BYD, they've got their strongholds. But CHERY's got something they don't. The hunger of an underdog with everything to prove. If they deliver a ute that's tough, smart, and reliable, they might not just survive, they might lead. This isn't just about a new model. It's about a new chapter. One where a Chinese brand dares to dream bigger than the stereotypes. Will they rise or fall? That depends on the miles ahead, on the stories told by drivers who take this ute where others fear to tread. One thing's certain, CHERY's not here to play it safe. They're here to change the game.